In this episode, I talk with Abdo Riani about win-win partnerships with the accelerator method.
Welcome to the Online Course Coach Podcast, brought to you by TrueFocusMedia.com. Whether you're a beginner or expert, this is the podcast for the latest in online course creation tips, news, interviews, and ideas. And here's your coach, Jeff Long.
Welcome back to another episode of the Online Course Coach Podcast. And how are you doing? How is your course coming along? How is your course planning, your course marketing, serving your audience? How is that coming along? I know a lot of you are in the learning stage, and that's why you come to this podcast, to learn tips, to learn strategies, and that is awesome. And then I know a lot of you your course is already built, it's out there, and you are in the process of marketing your course, of scaling it, of growing it, and finding ways to serve your students, to make a bigger impact and make a bigger income. Now, before we get into today's episode, I do want to talk real briefly about the marketing masterclass that I had recently. And so I've talked about that in past episodes. If you go to onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass, you can read all about that. So really briefly, it was a masterclass I gave where I went through 40 different strategies to market and sell your course throughout all the different stages of course creation. So I go in and I talk about how you can pre-market your course in specific ways. And I talk about how to market your course while you're building it. I give specific strategies. And then I give many marketing strategies once your course is done, is built, is out there. And so again, I talk about 40 plus ways to sell your course throughout all the stages of course creation. I had a lot of fun. I did it live recently, and you can buy that masterclass by going to onlinecoursecoach.com/mastery and look at the course marketing mastery masterclass. Ooh, that was a tongue twister. You can also learn about the other masterclasses I plan on doing soon. You can sign up and get alerted when those will be announced. Now, I will say this, it's much cheaper to purchase and come to the live masterclass versus getting the replay, only because I really want your interaction. That's where the fun happens, I think, where we can talk about specific questions, specific strategies that you're dealing with, and how I can help answer those. So again, if you want to market your course before, during, and after, check out that marketing masterclass where we talk about boosting awareness and sales before, during, and after course creation. All right, well, let's jump right into the show. This episode is really fun. I get to interview a lot of different people that specialize in different types of courses or course services, and it's a blast. I met Abdo a few months ago when he approached me to be on his show, and we had a really great conversation. He asked some really good questions. It was fun to talk with him, and then I kind of reciprocated. I said, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast. And honestly, this interview took me by surprise in a really good way. I love creative people, and that sometimes, takes the form of the art we create or the quality of something that somebody creates. But sometimes that creativity is in the structuring of business relationships. And Abdo goes really in depth about different strategies of partnering together, of working together, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, I was just kind of sitting back learning a lot, which is, one of the reasons why I have this podcast is to learn from other experts. So it's a lot of fun there. And so we discuss how to leverage the audience of your indirect competitors. Those who offer complementary and supplementary products instead of fighting for the attention. A lot of times we look at people in maybe a similar industry as not our enemy. I know we don't go that far, but as competition, or we don't reach out, or we don't look for overlap, maybe how they serve your audience and how you serve theirs. And, so he talks about how to build joint partnerships and launch different types of win-win partnerships by implementing what he calls the accelerate method. and or accelerator method. And he goes through that step by step, which is pretty cool. So, this has been really helpful. You'll definitely want to listen to this at least once and take notes. Now, I do want to say, with any podcast, I love learning. I love listening to podcasts, but make sure you take some notes to implement some of these strategies that he goes through. Now, we didn't get time to talk about one more thing because it's brand new. In fact, just the other day, Abdo approached me about doing a week-long, almost like a week-long live mastermind with other course creators and course experts. And so it's called the Heal Your Sick course, understanding and connecting the dots between the 5 key pillars of successful course and launch. Now, I'm sure you've all been involved in virtual summits where the presenter, primarily gives a presentation and then there's a big sales pitch. This is going to be different. There's going to be content given, but really there's going to be a lot of Q&A. Probably over half of the content, each day will be Q&A, will be discussion. So it's not just this information dump. It's going to be, hey, here's some content. Here's how to use it. Let's talk about how you can implement that in your business. And so I will be on March, let me scroll down here. This makes for great live podcasting, right? March 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I'll be talking about media, including podcasting, video, and really how to grow your audience through different media strategies. And then we'll be taking your questions and we'll be talking about how to implement that. And so I'm really, really looking forward to doing that. So you can learn more about this. It is going on live the week of March 11th through the 15th. It's every single day, just for an hour or two. You can pop in, pop out. You can get the recordings, and it is going to be pretty awesome. So you can find out more at onlinecoursecoach.com/sick-course. And sick course is one word because the name of this event is called Heal Your Sick Course. Well, let's jump right into the interview today. I have Abdo Riani with me. He is the founder of StartupCircle.co, where aspiring and rising entrepreneurs can connect with and learn from successful founders over daily live Q&A sessions. And that's what I was on. It was a lot of fun. He helps startup founders, digital product creators, coaches, and consultants accelerate their path to first and next paying customers through pre-sales, joint ventures, and more importantly, by doing things that don't scale. And we talk about that, and it was a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. His goal is to show passionate entrepreneurs how to launch and grow products and services efficiently with higher predictability. So Abdo, thanks for being on the Online Course Coach podcast today.
Jeff, thank you very much for having me. Really looking forward for our conversation today.
Yeah, I am too. So tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get from there to here?
Absolutely. So, Jeff, my background from an education and application, standpoint is in business. In fact, a month and a half away from completing my PhD in business with a concentration in finance. And I started my first venture back when I was a sophomore in college. I had a lot of passion for the environment, still do. One of the things I wanted to do was to create a solution that can help boost awareness for the environment. So I created a product that rewarded users for their eco-friendly actions. A couple of years later, I created Aspire IT, a startup development studio that helps entrepreneurs start startup ventures by doing things that don't scale. We can talk a little bit about that later. And then a couple of years after that, I started offering different products and services. I started coaching, consulting, and selling digital products. That is courses. And today, I am the founder of StartupCircle.co, where we provide entrepreneurs with personalized guidance by connecting them with successful founders through daily live Q&A sessions.
Wow, that's great. Now, it sounds like you've had a lot of successes, so I'm sure you've had no struggles, no roadblocks, right?
Of course not.
Do you have one maybe you want to highlight about, just talking about the struggle that either business is or the startup scene or whatever the process is? What can you tell us?
Absolutely. So let me give you two challenges that have helped me tremendously move my businesses forward. The first challenge was actually in starting my first venture, Jeff. I was so concerned about how I can raise funds to build the product that I just got stuck. I got stuck in doing things that don't matter or didn't at least seem to make any difference. I spent about 11 months trying to talk to investors, trying to get them to buy into the vision. A lot of people were very enthusiastic about it. A lot of people really liked the problem that I was trying to solve, but needed to see some results. They needed to see revenue. They needed to see traction. And for me at that time, I was wondering, how am I going to be able to get traction if I don't have the product? But then I realized that if I could change my execution strategy, if I can change my mindset, if I can change my path to market strategy, I could start building value without funding. So one of the things I started doing was the product rewarded users for recycling. So instead of focusing on trying to create a product that can help people find the nearest recycling facility, that can help them keep track of their points, help them scan their barcodes and get the rewards, help them get more involved in the community, I became the product. I became the one connecting them to the nearest recycling facility. I used tools like email, like a simple landing page that I bought for $10 from ThemeForest. I used my cell phone. In fact, didn't have a car at that time, but my roommate's car to get the job done. And thanks to that approach, just 3 months later, I had 500 active users, like 35 recycling facility, 50 local business, and I had generated about $20,000 in pre-sales, Jeff, way before I wrote a single line of code. So that was, one of the biggest challenges that I faced in the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And that's when I learned that no matter your resources, no matter your budget, there is always a way to build value before getting value from other investors so that you can get to the next stage. Now, more relevant to our conversation today, Jeff, a couple years later, I wanted to offer different products and services. I wanted to sell coaching, consulting services. I wanted to sell courses. One of the biggest challenges that many course creators face in the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, essentially, course creators are entrepreneurs, is that they don't have an audience. They don't have an audience to sell to. They don't have a big enough audience, I guess, to get feedback from, to generate revenue from. So one of the hypotheses I had was, what if I can leverage influencers or experts' audience instead of me right now trying to fight for the attention of their followers through ads and other strategies. So I created the Bootstrapping Summit, where I documented the journey of 100 self-funded entrepreneurs. And about 50% of those entrepreneurs that I had as my guests at startups at the Bootstrapping Summit helped me spread the word to their communities. They were happy to help me build awareness for the summit and for me as a course creator, or at least at that time, an aspiring course creator and entrepreneur. And thanks to that, I got the exposure to about 6,000 people within my segment, within my target, going from literally 100 subscribers to over 6,000 subscribers in about 2 months. And with that, I was able to successfully launch my course to hundreds of people and generate the amount that I wanted to generate. So those are two challenges, Jeff. And after that, I found so many other ways that such partnerships can be leveraged to build an audience, to grow an audience, to build authority, and to build trust at the same time. Those are some of the things I would like to discuss more today. And I hope I answered your question, Jeff.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely want to talk about the partnership aspect and leverage. I'm a big believer in that and want to hear your expertise. But let's back up, because you mentioned something almost at the very beginning of the show here, and you said you were doing things that didn't scale. Do you still believe in that, or is that an effective method, or because that could be counterintuitive if not maybe done properly? What are your thoughts on that?
Every new venture, Jeff, whether it is a small business or a startup, and there is a very big difference between the two. A small business is looking to execute on on an already validated business model, while a startup is looking to seek for a business model that can help it to scale. And I will use some examples. In the case of my first venture, Jeff, it's a startup, and the risk is even higher. And it is very important that for entrepreneurs that are looking to alleviate risk, to seek some quantitative and qualitative validation without necessarily investing money at all, if not just a little bit of it, to do things that don't scale. And this applies to course creators, this applies to coaches, this applies to startup founders, and this applies to small business owners. So let me give you an example. For my first venture, I forgot about the product and I became the product, and that's how I started doing things that don't scale. I went to market under the condition of the unavailability of the product. I was the middleman who connected the three key stakeholders so that they can get the job done. Now, when I wanted to launch my course, doing things that didn't scale meant at that time, and still today, that instead of waiting until I have this perfect course, instead of waiting until I create those perfectly edited videos, instead of waiting until I create tested funnels and all those fancy email campaigns, what is the job that needs to be done here? There are students that want to learn something so that they can accomplish a specific goal. So all I have to do is to literally go and teach those students, whether it is through Zoom or one-on-one meetings or Skype or email, how to get the job done. I don't necessarily need a sophisticated and advanced course in the beginning for me to get the job done. Now, that is going to help me scale to hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of students without me needing to be teaching every one person or every student at a time. But in the beginning, to get some traction, to get some early validation, to start generating revenue, it is very important that you do things that don't scale. And believe me, things will scale, in fact, pretty quickly. It won't take too much time for you to go to that stage where you are serving a lot of people through automation and by building products that scale.
I love that. So I want to pull out a couple things because the wisdom that you just talked about, so for the listener, I know it can be easy when you see different experts or see different people that have, sold thousands of courses or hundreds of thousands of dollars in course, it's easy to get jealous or feel overwhelmed, but I love that you said, you were doing those simple things. You were building relationships, you were building connections, and you said something like, hey, we can do the fancy, the funnel and the big marketing scheme later, but let's just, build something kind of that minimal viable product type of mentality. And so, a lot of times what I recommend is do one-on-one coaching or group coaching or even teaching at your local meetup group or whatever, because even though most of us that are, listening to this podcast are experts in some way, a lot of times we forget the beginning where our students are coming from. We've kind of mastered something, and so we kind of forget the beginning stages. So I just love that you said, don't do things that don't scale, at the beginning. That's good advice. I love that.
Just at the beginning, it will really not take that much time, much more time for you to get to a stage where you have that fancy product, that advanced course, a beautiful course, automated, where you're reaching a lot of people while asleep. That will happen, very soon. But in the beginning, if you're going to focus on, the recording, the material, if you're going to continue to make hypotheses as to what and how the student wants to learn, it's going to be very risky for you working on this course and trying to get it right the first time, which rarely happens. Instead of that, get in front of them, focus on attracting or acquiring the first 5 to 10 students at a time. Most of the time, the first 5 to 10 students are kind of hand recruited. It's people that invest in you because they trust you, and they do after you've had some conversations with them. One of the things I did in the beginning when I had those 100 email subscribers, out of which people had already bought into my course, and I started coaching them one-on-one before I created a scalable one, was that I first of all listed 5 to 10 active groups, all right? Not necessarily social media groups. They were somewhere Slack, somewhere in Reddit, somewhere in person, a meetup, and a local chamber. And then I went and had conversations with every single member of those groups. I remember, I like to quantify things. So I believe out of 300 or 320 conversations I got the first 10. I got the first 10 paying students. And those served as a benchmark, a pilot for what needs to be done for me to create a scalable course. And at the same time, they served as a testimonial, as case studies for other students that were coming in the future. This is just another example of how doing things that don't scale can literally take you to market next week without any investment at all.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. It's interesting. I'm working with a really targeted kind of hyper-focused niche. And so I have a goal here in the next month to meet locally with 20 to 30 of these people in this specific industry and just have conversations. Like, I'm not even trying to sell anything, some of the people I know. And so it's kind of catching up and just seeing what pain points they have and just listening, because I know that if I lay that groundwork then, that I'll be more informed when I do have an offering or a service or, something that I can provide to them. And so I know a lot. Sometimes that's not the glamorous stuff, right? It's glamorous to say, oh, I made, 6 figures on my course, or I did this or that. But, it takes some work. Like you said, it takes some legwork to get to that point so you can scale it.
It does. If it was easy, believe me, I mean, it is a no-brainer to create a course, because, you could do it from home. You have all the needed tools. And if you have some knowledge and expertise that you've acquired over the years, all you had to do, if it was easy, was put it in text or in video, but it isn't as easy. And that's why the real entrepreneurs are rewarded for their perseverance. In the beginning, what you want to do is to focus on your next first small milestone. I found that a lot of entrepreneurs in the beginning focus too much on their first big milestone, whether it's the first 100 students or the first $100,000 in revenue, when they don't even have the first student. Yeah. But then when they look at what it will take to get the first 100 paying students or $100,000 in revenue, they just feel lazy. They feel overwhelmed, and they quit. So focus on the first small milestone, and that is exactly your first small milestone, Jeff. Now, you're experienced in the field, and you've created and helped so many entrepreneurs, course creators create courses, and you know that this is the first step. Now, what's going to happen, Jeff, and I think you'd agree with me, that a percentage of the people that you're going to be speaking with are going to convert, are going to tell you, where can I learn more about this? How can I become a student? How can I join your course? And that's exactly what I mentioned earlier. Going to groups, talking to people, having conversations. People will remember you. It will be a lot easier later when you reach out and tell them, hey, remember who I am? I am actually working on creating this. It's going to be launched this day. If you want early access, here's how to get it. And look forward to contributing to the success of your course journey.
Yeah. Now, talk to me, because you mentioned this next thing was part of the reasons for your success, was that you were able to leverage the audience of other people's, even maybe indirect competitors. Like, how does that look like? And talk about that joint partnership aspect.
Absolutely. Let me give you two more examples. Let me give the audience two more examples. I shared the idea of the bootstrapping summit and how leveraging people's audience by highlighting their expertise and then kindly asking them to promote or to share and perhaps in exchange get an affiliate commission is one example of how you could leverage, how you could build partnerships that convert. And as a result, get awareness, get trust, and build a bigger audience. Let me give you another example. Right now, Jeff, I am the founder of Startup Circle, as I mentioned in the beginning. Startup Circle features entrepreneurs on a daily basis. The way we do it uniquely by allowing aspiring founders, rising founders to come and connect with those guests, ask questions, hour-long sessions. They get to share their screens. They get to ask their own questions and get personalized answers. So how did I leverage partnerships to grow Startup Circle? Here's one example, and this example can be used in any other area, in any other field. So I reached out to local chambers of commerce, Jeff. I went to the chamber and told them that I know that one of their goals is to promote economic activity. And one of the ways you do that is by providing your entrepreneurs with educational or training material or programs. And you do invite lots of speakers to come and help out with that. Your goal is to get them the best people so that they can get the right answers. And I also told them that sometimes the budget is limited. You can't get all the experts you want. You can get all the experts from other states and throughout the world. So here's how I can contribute to the chamber. I told them I'm going to be bringing experts. I'm going to be able to bring entrepreneurs who have been successful in different areas based on your needs and based on the needs of the members in the chamber. And all I need from you is distribution. All I need from you, George, I told him, that I need you to help me spread the word about this event. And that's what happened. The chamber was happy that they were able to get someone who would otherwise charge $25,000+ for a keynote. The members got access to highly successful founders. I got access, and Startup Circle got access to 100+ new entrepreneurs who joined Startup Circle. And the guest speaker that I brought also was happy because he got the attention of a lot of people in one room. Now, this is one type of partnership that actually also led to me speaking at the chamber and to 100+ people personally. And as a result of that, a percentage approached me and now is working with me. And now I am following the same strategy with more and more other organizations. This is just one example that doesn't necessarily have to be a summit. It can be a collaboration that I have initiated and I have championed, I guess, to build awareness for Startup Circle, for my personal brand, and to get people to buy into my products and services. Another example, Jeff. One of the things I did was after I had a conversation with a few of my mentoring entrepreneurs, students who are building courses, I learned that a big percentage of course creators, or at least aspiring course creators, purchase the tech, let's say a Lifter or a LearnDash or a Teachable, whatever it is, and never use it. They invest in the software. They, invest for the yearly plan or the 6-month plan or even the monthly plan, and they never take action. They don't do anything with it. And then, I reach out to one of the founders of these companies, Chris Badgett, the founder of Lifter LMS, and I know you know Chris. Yeah. Great guy. I told him, Chris, here's what I learned recently. I've been doing a little bit of research and I've been talking to, those entrepreneurs that I'm working with, those course creators. Is it true that a big percentage of your paying users are actually not using the software, are inactive? He said, this is a huge problem. He said this is very, very common. A very big percentage of those who are using mine and many other SaaS startup software are actually not using the tool. They just invest in it and they don't move forward. So I told Chris, here's what we can do. We can organize something, you and I, and invite other experts to help those inactive members move the needle. We can help them take action. We can help them move their course idea to market. We can help them move forward. Would you be interested in collaborating with me on this? I'll be able to bring in other thought leaders, other experts, and we will organize a week-long mastermind or workshop or online event, whatever you want to call it. It will be live, and we will help course creators, 50 to 100 course creators or aspiring course creators grow. He loved it, and now we are working on it. In fact, yesterday only we hosted the first webinar announcing it, and it's coming up in March. This is one other example, Jeff, and I can give you a much simpler one. One of the things I did in the beginning of 2018 that didn't require a podcast or an event or anything was I wrote a guide, and what I did was I supplemented the guides. In fact, I did it with multiple guides, but let's talk about the first one. I supplemented the guide with interviews. This made the guide a lot more interesting, and this allowed me to ask those people that I highlighted in those guides, the interviews that are conducted, the guests, to spread the word. In fact, one of the guests I had for the first one was Andrew Warner, the founder of Mixergy, and Andrew proposed after the interview that we could collaborate on a Facebook ad campaign to promote this. This is one other way that I was able to build a partnership with someone that didn't necessarily require any time or money, but at the same time was beneficial. And finally, let me end it with this, Jeff, and then maybe you can ask me specific questions. The Startup Circle has now partnered with many companies. One of those companies is Indie Hackers, or I guess communities. This is a community of 50,000+ entrepreneurs. And when I reach out to Cortland, I told him about all the things he's doing and how I am very appreciative for the resources that he's created for entrepreneurs. And then I told him, here's how I can contribute to Indie Hackers. And the way I proposed it, or what I proposed, was that in addition to all the sharing that he's providing, all the discussions and the conversations that he's initiating or helping boost, I can bring in successful entrepreneurs to answer Indie Hackers members' questions on Startup Circle sessions. And Cortland was very happy with that. And now he is on a weekly basis referring more and more and more Indie Hackers entrepreneurs to join Startup Circle sessions. And that alone, that one partnership alone, has boosted Startup Circle performance. Let's use audience as a metric here, by about 50% in the last 3 weeks only. This is another example, Jeff, and you could be creative with it. You could, think about it for a moment. Once you understand the idea, all you have to do is just understand the idea. Yes, you can follow the exact same strategies that I mentioned right now, but once you understand the idea, you can find many other ways of building partnerships that convert.
Yeah, I love this. So it's interesting because I recently did a masterclass, which for the audience can find it at onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass, on 40 marketing strategies to market your online course before, during, and after you create it. And so one of the things I just touched on, you have a lot more experience, and so that's where I want to pick your brain here. One of the things I touched on in that masterclass was marketing through joint ventures, through relationships, because just hearing the creativity that you just spoke about is just inspiring. And so where do you get those ideas, or how would you encourage the audience if they're like, okay, Abdo has it going on, he's got all these ideas, he's making it happen, but I used to be in corporate, or maybe I was a teacher, or how do I get these ideas or even replicate what you just spoke about? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it does, Jeff. And I would highly recommend that in the beginning you follow one direction. One of those strategies that I have shared with you today and that I have implemented successfully after obviously making some mistakes and learning from my mistakes. But the premise of all the things I mentioned right now is that you are leveraging other people's audience. So no matter what direction you want to take and what direction you want to follow, you will in one way or another leverage other people's audience. So what I would start with is list the 10 to 20 to 30, perhaps 50, so that you can have a big enough pool of people that have a big audience relative to yours. It could be 5,000, it could be 10,000, it could be 100,000 subscribers or followers, and start reaching out. All right, before you decide what plan you want to follow or you're better off following, you have to go through one very important stage, no matter what direction you decide to take. That stage is the relationship building stage. If you're going to just reach out to an influencer and propose a plan out of the blue, that is not going to work. I have gone through that multiple times in the past. I have learned my lessons. That's not going to work. One of the things I am running right now is called entreperks.com. Where entrepreneurs can find $23,000+ in savings from about 90+ of the best products on the market. And my idea in the beginning was, you know what, let me reach out to those influencers who have a list of entrepreneurs, and those entrepreneurs might be interested in buying into Entreperks, which is just $27 a year. I'll be very happy to share 50, maybe even 70% with those influencers. So I started emailing people, bombarding people with emails, 100+. No one, Jeff, no one I didn't know even responded to my emails. The 3 or 5, I think, people that agreed to work with me were people that I had built some kind of relationship with in the past. So no matter what direction you want to take, start by reaching out and start building a connection or a relationship with that pool of influencers that you have listed. 50 is a good number because you're going to realize, obviously, that a big percentage is busy or is not interested or doesn't want to have a conversation in the first place. And one of the things I like to do to kind of start breaking the ice is by commenting on their posts, by sharing their articles, by retweeting their tweets. One of the hacks that I have followed for years and that has played a very big impact with about 100% conversion rate is actually purchasing one of their products. If they have a book, if it's a $10, $20 product, or if they have, a small product for perhaps a mini course or something that you can afford and will benefit from, obviously, that's a good investment to make, because that's going to be a door to them at talking to you. They will always speak with you if you are one of their customers. Now, after that, all right, that's just the beginning, and that usually takes before I contact every person, I spend a day or two doing that. Now, what happens next is very important. That's the part where you're gonna build trust with them, and the best way to build trust with them is to have a one-on-one conversation with them. And the easiest way to have a one-on-one conversation with them is to get them to have an interview with you. If you get them to an interview, and most people will not mind being interviewed. I always say that experts like to be experts, and the least you can do is highlight their expertise. Plus, some people love to help and will just join the interview just because they want to contribute. So if you want to speed up the process, if you want to have a conversation with them, ask them for a little bit of their time for an interview. If you don't have a podcast, that is fine. I just share with you some strategies on how you can leverage those interviews. You can write guides and supplement them with interviews. You can create a YouTube channel, takes a second, and you can post those interviews on YouTube. You can do the same thing with Twitter or Facebook. That could be your platform in the beginning, or you can obviously invest in a podcast. Once you get them to an interview, that's when you will have a good opportunity to propose the partnership. In general, when it comes to partnerships, you want to assume most of the responsibilities. You want to make it so easy for them to work with you that, working with you is as if they're not going to do any extra thing in their day. Take care of most things except the part where they have to perhaps show up, or where they have to perhaps email their subscribers. And even then, you're going to have to help them by creating a swipe copy and making it as easy as possible for them. So for those who don't have an idea, to summarize, Jeff, where to start and what to do, don't worry about the next stage in partnership development and the execution. Essentially, focus on the relationship part. This part isn't going to take long either. It will probably take 2 weeks, 3 weeks. In fact, for the Bootstrapping Summit, starting with the first pitch until the end of the summit, 2 months. Jeff, it took me 2 months, including 100 interviews, including the pitching, including the launch, including the partnership development. In fact, for the Bootstrapping Summit, I had 14 partners in addition to the speakers. Those 14 partners helped me promote the summit. Those were promotional partners, companies like Rebrandly, like Free Up, I completely forgot. There's Bright Message, many companies.
Yeah.
So this is my advice for those who are starting and don't know what to do. Don't focus on what you need to do. Focus on what you need to do to build the relationship, and then you can reach out to me and we'll take it from there. But for now, just build those relationships.
Yeah, I love that because in a way that people overcomplicate things, and it's really all about relationships, And so it even though business and technology has changed quite a bit, it just still goes back to relationships. So
Absolutely.
as we close out here, I just have a minute or so, but I know that you help people with everything we've been talking about, this method you've created about joint ventures and so much more. So talk to me a little bit about this 2-hour road mapping session that you have for the audience.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, one of the things I do to help entrepreneurs accelerate, or course creators accelerate their path to market, or their path to first 100 paying students, is implement this idea of the accelerate method. So the accelerate method is essentially what we talked about today. It's about leveraging influencers or experts or a thought leaders audience instead of fighting for the attention of their followers. And this can be executed on in many ways, depending on the needs and goals and objectives of course creators. So one of what will happen in those 2 hour in that 2 hour conversation, this 2 hour road mapping session, is we'll start by talking about the goals of the course creator, of the entrepreneur. We'll talk about the product, the course, type of course. We'll talk about the pricing. We'll talk about the influencers, and then I will help the entrepreneur or course creator design a plan, just like all the examples I shared with you today, or different ones, so that they can accomplish their goals, their next big milestone, by applying or by leveraging joint partnerships. This is what will happen in those 2 hours.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And to the audience, you can check that out by going to onlinecoursecoach.com/done by you, no spaces, done by you. And you can check that out and sign up if that's a good fit. Well, Abdo, I really appreciate you being on the show here today. I mean, it's been just a wealth of knowledge, and it's even inspiring to me just to see people that are serving others, that are building relationships, and really doing business right. And so I appreciate you being on the show today.
Oh, thank you very much, Jeff. This has been it's been a pleasure, and I'm very happy to have met you a couple of weeks probably ago, and now we're taking it to another level and working with each other and helping each other and each other's audiences. So thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. When I interviewed him, we had some technical difficulties, so we had to we started late, and then we had a hard cutoff. And so, man, I could have gone a lot longer, but But the content he talked about, with doing things that don't scale, with these types of joint ventures and partnerships, I just love that because I love creative business. I love figuring out win-win solutions. Sometimes it's a win-win-win, right? Between you, the other person, and maybe the audience or the student or whatever that is. And so make sure to implement that. Hey, as I head out here, don't forget the two things, the marketing masterclass. You can find that at onlinecoursecoach.com/masterclass. And the Heal Your Sick course event happening next week, March 11th through the 15th. You can learn more about onlinecoursecoach.com/sick course. You can see what other experts will be there on their logged in every day, giving content, answering questions. It's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely check that out at onlinecoursecoach.com. All right, we'll keep coming back to the podcast here. Make sure to check out the website. There's videos, there's resources, there's guides, there's a whole lot of awesome stuff. If you're just jumping into the course creation process, you definitely want to check that out. Even if you're experienced, there are some advanced strategies on the resources page as well. So check that out. All right, well, hey, it is my goal to help you to teach many, to impact millions. So keep creating those courses, keep teaching your students, and keep listening to the show. All right, I will talk to you next time.